Hello and welcome to the first of our Edinburgh Fringe Preview podcasts for 2025. In this one, we're going to hear all about three of the shows which are part of the Made in Scotland showcase, which is always a sign of quality. In a moment, you'll hear me talking about Stepping In, Spilling Out and Float. But first of all, I spoke to Robbie and Christine about their show, These Mechanisms. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of our Edinburgh Fringe podcasts. And I'm joined today by Christine Thynne and Robbie Synge to talk about These Mechanisms, which is going to be at this year's Fringe. First of all, can you tell us about yourselves and working together?
I've known Robbie for many years now, from when he came to do some classes in Dance Space and was going to do a production of a piece called The Past Inside the Present. And then I worked with him in another piece called Ensemble, which in actual fact toured. We went to Paris, went to Dublin, varying places. So I have a long history of working with Robbie.
And yourself, Robbie, I guess it's the opposite of that story.
Yeah, pretty much. It goes. I would describe it as a good friendship. We're good pals, and we've been collaborating for over a decade. It's been a sort of evolution, I guess, of various outcomes. Most recently, These Mechanisms.
Well, let's talk about These Mechanisms. What can you tell us about it?
Oh, well, I have a great love of sea kayaking and the outdoor life, as well as how your body actually moves, the mechanisms of your body moving. And so this is a piece that has evolved from these ideas of balancing your body and how your body moves and where we can take it in a production piece.
And so how did you approach the piece first? How does it begin? How does the process begin?
Oh, Robbie.
Well, I've always thought Christine was very adventurous and up for trying lots of things, and just quite generous and open-minded in performance. And an opportunity came up through a Illuminate bursary, which I'd encouraged Christine to apply for, and it was really just to try some stuff. And a long story short is that we had various bits of R&D around where I live in Nethybridge in the Highlands, and we brought together, I guess, some of Christine's interests as she's described, and I've tried to help Christine channel those interests into something that speaks to her lived experience, her life experience, and embodies her adventurous, really like warm-hearted spirit on stage. So it's very live, it's very playful, and I think it's a lot of fun.
And do you have distinct roles in terms of bringing the production together, in terms of choreography or writing or whatever it might be?
I think Robbie leads, directs me, and then allows me to go off at a tangent and explore things, and then he'll pull me back in. And then we'll maybe have to have some negotiation and compromise as to how we manage to work forwards. But it's Robbie is in control, I'm going to say.
Do you agree with that, Robbie? Are you in control?
I'm not so sure. I think it's I think I have certainly a responsibility as I guess I've got more experience than Christine in making performance and putting performance together and putting it out there, and I've tried to bring that experience together with my good friend to help Christine make something that's authentic and really speaks to her interests, because I don't suppose that this process of making a piece, which has been ongoing now for 2 or 3 years, really, it's unlikely to happen loads of times at this point in Christine's life. Who knows? but I really felt like a responsibility and like a pleasure to try and I guess kind of mentor Christine in the creative process. And I think we make decisions together. Maybe it's quite an organic, unconventional way, but it's we're working. I'd say we're really working together to make this piece.
Have you performed it already somewhere? Has it been seen on stage?
Yes. So last year we had the opportunity to preview it in Inverness, and then we did 3 days at Dance Space last year.
And in terms of that, has it changed at all due to the performances? And do you envisage it perhaps changing during the Fringe run?
Well, it's live.
Yeah.
Each performance is going to be slightly different, because of the risk taking that's in it. It's just not a set piece that I can repeat day after day. Some of the dialogue will change depending on the audience.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one thing that audience often note is the authenticity of it, and part of that is Christine's way with an audience, very warm and responsive, but also because we're working with objects, precarity and balance, and things like water and the flow of water and shifting of weight. There's a certain amount of unpredictability, and that nature of working with objects in that way helps keep it really live, as well as manipulating sound through pedals and sampling devices and all sorts of things. So Christine's quite challenged in the performance, which is what gives it the liveness and authenticity. So it's always different.
And I was going to ask, Christy, maybe you can answer that since you are the one interacting, what audiences can expect. We've heard a little bit there, but if they're coming to the show, should they come with any expectations at all?
I think they perhaps see in any of the write-ups that I'm 82 now, and they may be coming and thinking, oh, this is going to be an old person on stage. And this is just totally untrue. I dispel all these thoughts that old people shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. I don't know whether Robbie wants me to talk about any of it, or whether that's exposing the secrets and the excitement.
And we certainly don't want to do that. But is that part of the reason, Robbie, for doing this piece, is to kind of confound people's expectations of an older performer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of it. Again, coming back to wanting to be, sincere with Christine's sort of spirit and what she would want to put on stage. I think it's very adventurous. I think it's quite surprising. I think the vulnerability that Christine takes on through the choices of working with objects and having to control sound and being on step ladders and working with water, it's a sort of like list of ingredients where you kind of think, well, what could possibly go wrong here? But she handles it brilliantly. And I think it's just a kind of joyful, really bold, adventurous kind of display, highly visible, older woman on stage, which I'm sure there's some politics there that around visibility and also, I mean, being an emerging artist, I would say at the age of 80, 81, 82 is perhaps something that we can advocate for through the performance.
As you were mentioning the potential dangers there, Robbie, Christine was chuckling away to herself. Is that something that you kind of embrace then, that you really enjoy?
Yes, because I know that if it's with regards to using a loop pedal, as to how I first set that going, I maybe struggle with, well, I don't struggle with sending emails, but I mean, I struggle with technology, which is understandable. And then I was introduced to how I could record something and then how I could over record on it, which would then give me a soundscape that I could then move my body to. And so I'm creating some of the sound that I'm using in the piece. And that can go wrong if I press a wrong button. But then I can just say to the audience, well, I've got that wrong, and now I'll need to get it right. And I do have a sound person, Callum Patterson, who we made a decision that he needs to be on stage with me in case I need to be bailed out, as opposed to him running down from a sound box or something.
So there is live music as well. It's the backdrop of live music, yes?
Yeah, it's kind of like a sort of assisted solo, I suppose. Christine's definitely in the spotlight, but Callum is kind of her right-hand man, and he's literally there to assist if things go too far and something's irretrievable, or if Christine samples something, records a loop on these devices, and it just doesn't work out. We kind of make something of that in the performance, so it's very explicit, the possibilities of failure, I suppose, and success.
We should let people know where and when they could see the show.
Dance Space, and there are 13 performances, and so we open on the 1st of August, and so I do 3 nights, 1st, 2nd and 3rd, and then I get a rest for 3 nights, and then I do 7, 8, 9 and 10th of August, and then I get a rest again, and then 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th, then a couple of days, 1 day's rest, and then the 19th and the 20th, all at Dance Space.
And
complete run.
That's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like quite a civilized way of doing Edinburgh, I have to say, and it seems increasingly they're not doing a 28-day run or whatever it might be, that, they're a bit more considered about when they perform as well. And now, whereabouts is Dance Space in Edinburgh, Christine?
So we're in the Grassmarket.
I thought
Grassmarket, and it's 5:15 that we're on.
Oh.
And it lasts 50 minutes, I'm going to say. And it's a perfect time to come into the Grassmarket because you can have ice cream beforehand, and then you can go for dinner afterwards or a drink.
I'm just going to say it's a good time to be on, definitely. And are you looking forward, both of you, are you looking forward to doing Edinburgh this year?
Oh, I am. As I say, I'm excited about it. I am just so lucky that as somebody who has emerged at my age to have this opportunity to present a good piece of work to the public that I think will really enjoy it and be surprised.
And yourself, Robbie?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really joyful show. It's really joyful. It's lovely meeting audience afterwards, and it's in a really supportive venue. There's lots of great work there.
Yeah.
I believe you'll be chatting with other artists who are performing there, and I think it's just a real fun time.
And Christina, you've described yourself a couple of times there as an emerging artist.
Mm-hmm.
So is this coming late to life to performing in general? And if so, why did you want to do it now?
I have performed intermittently over the years, and it was just this opportunity that I had with Luminate, and then how we suddenly found that we could do this as a production piece, and it was just exciting to go forwards with it. And why not? Because I don't think there is a limit to age as to what you can do.
No, absolutely. And Robbie, we've said that you've been collaborating for a while. I think you said maybe 10 years, roughly. What is it about working with Christine that, works so well for both of you?
I think obviously just a sort of a friendship and a pleasure about working with anyone. It sort of, allows a relationship to develop and a trust to develop. And I think trust grows and collaboration. There's a certain understanding, and they're kind of the foundations of in my experience anyway, some good collaborations. So there's there's a comfort there where you're able artistically to kind of push some boundaries a little bit, I think.
Would you agree with that, Christine?
Absolutely, because certainly my boundaries have been pushed. But I've enjoyed it, and it's great fun.
Yeah.
Because this is the exciting thing. It's just great fun to do and work with Robbie.
And I don't know if you've had a chance to look at what else is on in Edinburgh, but is there anything that either of you are particularly looking forward to?
Yes, the Wee Man, I think it's called, which is a Barrowland Ballet piece about teenage boys. That is probably not the right description. I just happen to have a dance space program.
Fantastic program, yes, great.
Just because, what is it called? Wee Man. Here we go. Wee Man Barrowland Ballet.
Fantastic. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah.
Yes, and that would be a recommendation from me.
Okay, and yourself, Robbie?
I'm always interested to see what dance base program brings from abroad, from overseas. And there's always some surprising stuff. I'm also looking forward to out in Portobello, Welcome to the Fringe Palestine. That's really obviously very important this year, and I think that's something that we'll probably all enjoy for the program itself, but also just getting out of the hustle and bustle of the city centre a bit into Portobello.
Yeah,
I think that's a really exciting prospect.
Yeah, Portobello seemed like a bit of an oasis of calm during the Fringe, definitely. And this show, these mechanisms, is part of the Made in Scotland showcase, and I wondered if that's an important kind of thing to be part of.
Robbie?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it is. I've been part of it in the past, and it's lovely. I guess it's a curated program, so it brings a little bit of a spotlight to the work and an opportunity to meet with some international programmers. We're really lucky that this work has had some touring funding in Scotland. But we got our sights set on where else might be interesting to take the work and how it might land. So that's a great context to be part of.
It's certainly it's a name of a showcase or a set of shows that I always go and look for, because it's a real sign of quality I've found over the years, definitely. Well, Christine and Robbie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. These Mechanisms sounds like a fantastic show, and I can't wait to get along myself and see it. But thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm now joined by Mark Bleakley to talk about stepping in, spilling out. Hello, Mark.
Hiya.
So, first of all, tell us all about stepping in, spilling out.
Yeah, so stepping in, spilling out is I would call it an assisted solo that's a collaboration between myself and Remy Gouffeau, who's a percussionist and performer. I basically made this work to think about why I enjoy stepping. Stepping is the basis of my dance practice. I come from originally from like starting as a breakdancer, then moving into more contemporary dance and working with house dance, which is another social dance from America as well. And yeah, I just wanted to make a piece, think about what feels so good about putting one foot in front of the other. And like when I do this, when I step, other things happen. It starts tapping into different cultures, different politics, different places, different communities. And I was like, okay, like I want to talk about this and find a way of making a show that kind of talks about this. And with that, drums comes to mind. Like the percussion of stepping, it's stepping is percussive already. So I was like, okay, I'd like to work with a drummer. and I met my friend Remy, who is a brilliant percussionist, kind of comes from the jazz lineage,
Right.
but also works in like pop and metal and free improvisation. And I saw him do a performance of a live performance of like Chicago footworking or Chicago juke, which is like really fast, kind of. I would say it's like hip hop infused techno pacing of like music, and it's amazing. And see him play 150 BPM live, I was like, yeah, no, I need to work with you. So yeah, we just started working together and finding a way that we could collaborate and have a conversation through this work. So it's really like it's me on stage with a pile of cables surrounding me that I've kind of designed in this little decorative pattern.
Right.
And then it's me talking and dancing and engaging with Remy and engaging with the audience. So it's really like I would call it a step and talk. Performance lectures, maybe a more pretentious way of phrasing it. Um, and it's like I'm really going through references, going through different landscapes of like what happens when I step in different ways, what happens with different rhythms, what happens when it connects to different people. Like I guess one of the things that I do is throughout this project, because it's for me it's an ongoing project.
Right.
I invite different dancers, whether they're professional or not professional. I look for enthusiastic dancers. I invite them to come into the studio to like come step with me, and we do a little exploration, and we record a conversation from that, and that builds into an archive of conversations that I have with people. And this is informs the work. So throughout the performance, there's excerpts of these voices
Right.
in the work. And yeah, so it's really fun that way. Like I get to keep reliving the work and rethinking like what it means to me, what stepping means to me, but what it means to other people. And then also this beautiful thing that dance does for me is like what happens when we move together,
Hmm.
and what does that produce, whether that's just two people or whether that's like a mass. Because I'm really talking about, stepping movement in relation to like dancing as an experience for itself, but also dancing as a social action. And then more broader is like movement as collective action. So thinking about protests, thinking about club spaces, like thinking about what it really means to be in the presence of others, but also in the presence of yourself. So it's kind of like we trying to weave between this way of like how putting left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot in different contexts, in different patterns, really changes different effects.
So the term step, it's not like a specific dance term in this thing. You're
No,
genuinely talking about
going
step.
right to the foundations of shifting weight from left to right. But that for me, it's like coming from hip hop dance, like footwork is so inherent in that, and rhythm is so inherent within those dance forms. It's very
Right.
prominent. Unlike I would say, like I work in contemporary dance a lot. I love it, but it does lack a interest or focus on rhythm. So it's really trying to go back to like what happens, like marching. I could talk about marching all day, and there's like a good 5 to 8 minutes in the show of me talking about that. But yeah, it's just really thinking about like how it feels, like literally the sensations under your feet, but also like what emotional or social relationships or poetics does that produce when
Mhm.
we kind of interrogate it.
It's really interesting. It strikes me that we have never, certainly in my lifetime, thought more about steps than we do at the moment. Nearly everyone is thinking, have I got my steps in? I mean, maybe that started in
Yeah.
COVID, maybe went before that, but there is this discussion of just what it means to put one foot in front of the other that I think perhaps is very contemporary.
Yeah, I mean, it's really part of. I mean, pandemics is a good example because I think I had a real shift of direction in my work or focus around then. And I started to look down at the ground and start to think about like the ground as a thing that like affects us more and more. Like for me in the pandemic, it was like I felt the ground was moving away from us. I felt like I was free floating, and I had to do something to ground myself. And dance really did that for me. Like it connected to me to the present place, connected to me to the material around me. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it does something beyond poetry. It has like a real physical somatic uh experience.
Yeah.
My words are getting lost, but yeah, it's like it ha- it has a matter to it. Like
Yeah.
dancing can really connect you to a place,
I
and
guess
that's
it's, sorry, I was going to say, I guess it's the basis of all dance, if you
yeah,
break it right down.
yeah.
And also, it's something that, I said people maybe think about it more than they ever had before. But a bit like breathing, you do it without thinking until
Yeah,
you start thinking about it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's walking, and then as soon as you're aware of your feet, you're like, oh, I'm stepping, and
Yeah.
like each one becomes this moment of connection that you can really like think about. But yeah, totally like pandemic for me, it really opened up this thing about and this thing of collectivity and like connecting to others and how that's such a political need
Mhm.
and a social need is to connect with others. And I think that was also like really like coming back to making work. And I was like, yeah, for me, this is also why I invite people into in the process is like for me, dance is social, and I need to make that inherent in the process as well as the product.
I mean, you mentioned a little bit about the audience, but I was going to ask you what audiences can expect. Is there interaction in the show?
There's small. So I love participation, but I hate being a person who gets forced into participation. So there are moments of encouragement, as people enter the space, we're kind of there, still setting up the space. So sometimes people are asked to help with that. For me, that's really about trying to soften the boundaries.
Hmm.
My dance background and my training has never really come from a theatrical context. I studied fine art and I've had a breaking background, and then I went to study choreography. For me, it's a dance floor rather than a stage. So I want to set the boundary of the dance floor, and I want to do that with the audience. So we find ways of kind of creating the space together by moving the cables into the space and arranging it bespoke to how the audience is engaging that day. And then throughout the work, there's different points. So there's a point where I offer the audience to come march, just march on the spot. And it's like you can do that sitting down or you can do that standing up, but it's just time for you to be like, come join in my rhythm and listen to how it feels for yourself, but also listen to how it feels when you do it as a mass. And what's really fun for me when I get that moment happening is that then I can counter the rhythm. So then we become more in a conversation with the audience. So then they give me a time, and then it allows me to play on that. So then I start to like dance more percussively, I would say, and like play polyrhythmically with like the 4/4 that they give me to like finding ways to like beat in it, play in and off beat of that. And that for me is a really joyful thing because that for me, like coming from breaking, having this cipher background, like that's what you do when you hold a circle. You're holding space, you're holding time for other people. So when you get an audience to hold that metronome, it really it's a really magical moment because then it's like, ah, they're the work as well. This is the dance floor. We're holding the dance floor together.
We should let people know, because I'm interested to know the space you're going to be in for to allow that to work. So, where's it going to be on at the Fringe?
So we're at Dance Space. We're in Studio 3, which is really nice, like more square room, more openly lit. So it's not such like a center of focus, but much more broad and open. And yeah, so it'll all be standing in the round, or there's some benches as well. But yeah, it's the idea that like there's there's a for me, I'm always looking for like a conversational relationship with the audience. That it's not this
Yeah.
or looking down into it, that it's like I meet them and it's not talking to a broad person, but it's talking to you, then you, then you. And it's this mood, this kind of, yeah. I've kind of been doing a couple interviews and like, yeah, asked like, what's the vibe of it? And I was like, oh, it's like a conversation going on a tangent. It's
Yeah.
like, this weaving conversation on a walk, and suddenly it goes to there, and suddenly you're like, well, where were we again? It's okay, come back to stepping. And then we go off somewhere else, and then we come back to stepping.
And so it's different every night, I presume.
Yeah, ish. There's that
For you,
like
maybe. For you, it's different every night.
yeah, for me, like this is what we're really working on. We have 2 more weeks where we're kind of spending a bit more time working on, I guess, me and Remy's relationship, because I don't want it to be set. I have material that have like the script is unwritten, so there's like this kind of looseness around how I speak. And then for me, it's like we need to have this liveness in like our reaction so that we can respond in the moment. So yeah, there's loads of improvisation. There's nothing super set in the work, but there are definite like there's definite material, I would say. But what I really like is, it's me on stage, drums, and then a table with a laptop, and there's like this agency that I can like, oh, I'll put a conversation in here. Oh no, wait, I'll wait for this bit. I'll finish that, then I'll put another conversation in. So there is this really nice like ebb and flow that I can kind of choreograph in the moment as well.
And let's talk a little bit more about the live music aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds really exciting to get that. Does that change every night, or is that a kind of set piece of music?
There there are set rhythms. How we play them is different. So let's say there's always like Remy is always, I mean, it's really amazing to have someone always watching you and responding to you. And sometimes you know what's happening, and sometimes you have a reflection after, and you're like, oh, that was interesting. He's like, yeah, I saw you do this. So I scratched the side of the drum, and I was like, oh, okay. And it's really like because he has this very experimental form, like we have it's like sort of standard four-piece drum kit, but then we have loads of electronic triggers and a electronic drum pad, so we can really like play with reverbs, echoes, sub bass. Like there's a lot of different plays. And then there's like I would say so there's set moments where there's like, okay, we have these three rhythms. Remy will change in a sort of playful way. So we kind of play this game of stop start, and it's like he can stop, I can start, and very simple game. But how that then means like he switches the timings becomes like a really great way of opening new doors to different movement and different sounds. The most improvisational part is the part which we call sway into gas, which is like exploring this reference that have where it's like we're kind of asking Remy to play as gas particles and kind of send gas particles around the room. So it's very abstract, but it comes from a really, really amazing reference where this mathematician was at a metal concert, and he kind of was like, instead of being in the mosh pit, he was outside of it, and he was like watching in. And he's like, I recognize this. And then like took a video of it, put it into a program, and like kind of like just put points for each body. And then from that, what happened is he realized that people in mosh pits behave the same as gas particles, in that increase the increase the pressure of a vacuum with gas particles in it, there's more collisions. You increase the speed of music in the mosh pit, there's more collisions. And I was like, that's amazing.
That is
What
amazing.
what poetry there? And I just really had to work with that as a thing of like what thinking about masses of bodies and materials and ways to kind of embody that.
So you said that your background, if I remember correctly, was in breakdancing. So how did you move from that to being involved in your own choreography?
Yeah, bit of a spirally journey, really. That's kind of how I've described it, is that Actually, I went to study fine art. I was doing that in a bachelor's. I've always had a dance background, so I started breaking when I was like 13, 14. And then just kind of having two parallel creative practices. And then when I was studying art, I started working with video art, and there was like something that I wanted to study, and I couldn't slow it down enough. I wanted to look at these movements of Richard Pryor,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I wanted to slow it down, but the video quality was too low to do anything interesting with it. So I started reenacting it, and then that was kind of the first piece I made, which was like looking at reenacting stand-up comedians' gestures. And I thought this was like performance art, and there's an argument you can say it is still performance art, but one of my tutors was like, "Oh, this is choreography. You should really look at this thing." And that really opened up a door for me. I was like, "Ah, okay. I can work with choreography. I have this dance practice. Like this actually gives me lots of tools to work with." So I really from there it gave me an opportunity to open out more. I'd done a fringe show when I was young, when I was like 16. It was called Hip Hop Scotch, which was organized through Dance Space because they always supported hip hop. And it was like a under 18 show of four breakdancers and a bagpiper and a beatboxer. And it was like breaking kilts and like really like indulging in the Scottishness.
Wow.
Yeah, so like from that, I kind of reconnected with Dance Space, and that offered me a residency. And then suddenly it was like, okay, I can be welcomed in the space. Like, let's see how I can keep moving forward with my ideas and kind of like bringing my body in more and more and more.
It sounds amazing. Particularly breakdancing in kilts sounds fraught with danger as well, I would have to say. And
Yes.
yeah, before as the Fringe kind of comes into view, is there anything you're also excited about in Edinburgh this year?
Yeah, there's a few shows in the Main Scotland that I'm really excited for. Balfour Reparations, Through Warm Temperatures, and Waxen Figures. There are three shows that I'm really excited about. Waxen Figures did a little excerpt of their work as part of the launch, and that was really exciting to see. It's like really like contemporary folk music, like that's like fused with uh, dance music really well, and it's like really exciting to see some stuff coming out.
Oh, that does sound good.
Yeah, and then like apart from that, gonna see lots of exhibitions, and I want to go see the Palestine Museum that I see it's opened up in Edinburgh as well, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah. And I have to say, your show, having talked to you about it, sounds very exciting. The idea of having the live drummer on stage as well just gives it a kind of extra frisson, I think, if that's the right.
Yeah, I mean, I always say you should be able to prescribe live drums on the NHS. I feel like it's invigorating. It's
Yeah.
healing.
Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and all the best with stepping out,
Yeah,
spilling out.
thanks very much, Alistair.
And I'm now joined by Indra Wilson to talk about Float. Hello there, Indra.
Hi, lovely to meet you.
And you. And can you tell us all about Float? Because it sounds like a fascinating show.
Yeah, so Float is an autobiographical piece of work that I have written and perform in. Um, and the show kind of reimagines myself going to space as a metaphor to kind of deal with pregnancy loss at quite a young age. And I reimagine that I'm a part of the Apollo mission, and the mission fails at 13 weeks. And it's about how do you pick yourself back up? How do am I still allowed to call myself an astronaut if I didn't go to the moon? But it's a really hopeful show that celebrates loads of different types of love and really makes space for grief. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds quite a beautiful show, actually, when you put it that way, when you use that as a kind of allegory for that. And what can audiences expect? Are they involved at all? Or what's the situation there?
Yeah, so I kind of start the show by saying, for me to tell this story, I need to tell it and for us to all share it together. So the audience are involved very light touch. I don't get anyone on stage, but I really wanted with the subject matter to make sure that everyone kind of walked away really feeling like that show was quite personal for them as well.
Yeah.
And to have this like collective holding of the work and of each other. So yeah, it's the audience are involved, but in a really unique way. It feels like we're all kind of guiding each other. I kind of say in the show, we hold each other's hand throughout this, and that's definitely what it feels like.
I mean, it sounds obviously like it's a very personal show to you, but I have found that in terms of theatre in particular, the personal often generates the greatest empathy with other people because they can then address that to their own feelings and their own lives.
Yeah, totally. It's a really special show to me because it's like, so I did a few sharings before I made it into a final piece. And recently at NTS, we just showed the full show to an audience. And people were able to come away being like, it reminded me of my mom, or it reminded me of the joy that can sometimes come from grief and memories, and like everyone was able to take away such a personal connection to the show that maybe had nothing to do with pregnancy loss, but were able to, yeah, really celebrate. A lot of the show is me talking about the love I have for my own mom and my best friend Abby, and tons of people walk away and think about their best friends. So yeah, it's always really special what people take away from the show as well.
We should let people know where and when they can see it during the Fringe.
Yeah, so it's at the Gilded Balloon at 6 p.m.
Oh, perfect time. What a great time to be on.
Thank
And
you.
that initial idea of being an astronaut, I mean, it's such a captivating one. It's one that, will, I would hope, get a lot of attention. Was that an immediate, when you came to think about the show, was that idea there straight away?
Yes and no. I kind of wrote the show when I was a lot younger because I really wanted to. I was really thinking about how do you explain this to people? How do you get a really personal experience to be understood, even if someone hasn't gone through it? And the only metaphor I could think of was it felt like I was floating in grief. It felt like I was an astronaut and everyone was back down on Earth, but I was above just floating. Um, and yeah, and then I wrote one scene about me being in space and floating through grief and kind of in this black hole, and then left the scene that I'd written for a few years, and then just found it in my Google Drive and was like, oh, yeah, that was a really good way to describe it. And then just kind of started writing more and more stuff. And I think there's something really nice about the idea of space, that it's too big to understand.
Yeah.
Or I can't understand it anyway. It feels so massive as a concept, but of course it's so real. And yeah, that's definitely what pregnancy felt like for me. Was just it's too big to even think of, really.
So this is an idea that's been with you for a long time, but do you feel this is the right time then for it all to come together and do the show?
Yeah, totally. It's definitely, especially with the support of Made in Scotland, I feel really secure in myself to tell this story as well. And there's new elements you can find. When I first wrote the piece, it was a bit more sad and really reflected where I was at. And then now, a few years later, I'm able to write new characters in that represent certain parts and find a lot more hope in the story as well. So it's definitely, yeah. And with F-Bomb as well, it's like this team is a team that I couldn't even imagine having to make this show. As a solo artist, you're often by yourself in a rehearsal room. And I really wanted, even though this show is a solo show, to have a big team involved. And I'm really lucky that I do have a massive team.
So, I mean, F-Bomb are F-Bomb Theatre Company who are behind the show. How can you tell us a bit about them and how they've particularly helped this show?
Yeah, so F-Bomb is a feminist theatre company they create their own work, and then sometimes they produce other artists' work as well. But they often sit within this quite political lens. They only yeah, they tend to only hire women or genderqueer people to really push more technicians to be female and genderqueer, and really just expand who we see in theatre as well, which is really exciting. And I invited them to a sharing that I did at the Tron outside Eyes, and Rachel watched the work, and pretty much straight after the work was like, we will be in touch. And I couldn't have done it without F-Bomb, because it's a really hard, because it's so personal to me. Getting rejections for funding and stuff can be really difficult when it's so connected to you.
Yeah.
So just having a producer to take all of that on, and she really knew how to level it up as well, which, when you're in the work, you sometimes can't see how you can take it away from just one person doing everything. Yeah, she was really able to level it up, and she, really wanted to go for Made in Scotland, and was like, I think we should just throw our hat in the ring and see what happens. And thank goodness that we did. But yeah.
So for people who don't know, what benefits is there to being part of the Made in Scotland showcase?
Yeah, I think for a first-time Fringe person like me, I've never performed at the Fringe before. It gives you a network of artists. Like on the day when we all met each other, all of the artists that had been selected, you have people this is like their ninth time of being a part of Made in Scotland, and I really felt like I was stepping into a community that could say, oh, this is some advice of what you should do for like aftercare during the show. This is what you should do for marketing. So the biggest one for me is that you've got a little network and community. They're all doing it together. And then also you've just got like, with this topic, I wanted to make sure we had a big platform, because barely anyone's talking about pregnancy loss, especially of a young person. So I really, really wanted, to have a platform where, at the very least, we're just getting that topic talked about. And Made in Scotland, it does put you on a certain radar, just to have the show be in people's minds. And yeah, I'm so grateful about that.
And having that kind of support network, as you say, is it even things as basic as, oh, you're in a good venue, which you are, by the way.
Yeah.
And here's a little bit about what to expect. Because I guess if you're going to the Fringe for the first time, it must be quite daunting. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, well, I've been involved in Fringe shows before with different roles. I was an access support worker on June Carter Cash that got Made in Scotland last year. So I could see the level, but I definitely had moments of like, thank goodness I'm not the performer on it. And then now I am. So yeah, there's definitely a nervousness to it. I'm diving into the deep end doing a full run, but I'm also just really excited to spend a whole month doing this show and connecting with the audience afterwards. I think that's what I'm the most excited for, is having those conversations.
Yes, I admire you. I take my hat off to you for doing a full run, because increasingly people are stepping away from that. But that's the way to do. That's the hardcore way to do.
Thank you.
No doubt about it. And it's interesting. You said how you've tried it in different places and you've performed it before, and now it's coming to the Fringe. What are the stages in that? Was it just a kind of little parts of it which you'd written, and then it's matured onto this full piece?
Yeah, so when I performed it at Tron's Outside Eye Scratch Night, I'd never performed it before. And I really didn't know how audiences were going to take to it, because the second say I'm going to perform an autobiographical piece about my own pregnancy loss, you see the shoulders rise and people are, just like, how are you going to handle this and make it also entertaining and like a journey that as an audience you want to be a part of. So at the Tron, I showed 20 minutes, and yeah, that was the most nervous, of just like, this could be terrible. No one's seen it before. And so to perform it at the main stage at the Tron felt like a big risk. But yeah, people really liked it. And then I performed it at Summer Hall Surgeries.
Oh, yeah.
And I was testing out a new bit, like a middle part of the show, and was playing with the audience participation to see if people wanted to be involved or if people actually wanted just to observe the show and not kind of have that interactive element. But yeah, so I tried different bits, and then after the 2 weeks at NTS, we did an industry sharing of the full show, and that was just to see if that journey made sense, and yeah, and just getting final bits of feedback before we show it to the Fringe.
Because I guess it must be very difficult if it's a one-person show and at the early stages you don't have anyone in production kind of telling you what works and what doesn't. It must be difficult to decide for yourself because you must be in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And there's also bits that the show does talk about work placement rights for pregnancy loss and pregnant people. And it talks about the medical system, how you can only get mental health support after 3 miscarriages in a row. So I really wanted to talk about systematic things within the show. And I also had to see if people knew it, if it was universal knowledge or just the lived experience knowledge. And how do you fit the political with such a personal story? So it was a real trial and error of like, what do people already know about the experience? What do people want to know more of? And who is the audience for this show? But like you said before, it kind of, I very quickly learned, oh, this is quite a universal experience, even though it's based around such a niche one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I mean, what do you expect it to change at all during the run, or do you think you've got this set out?
Yeah, I think because it relies on, it's very playful at the start with the audience. And what I'm most excited about of doing a full run is seeing on the Saturdays when you've got a jam-packed audience versus the Mondays when no one's there, the show's going to change really massively. And it's really tailored to who my audience is. And that's, the really exciting thing as a performer is, the show will definitely have some tweaks and changes, but also live in the space, there's some bits that in my head I'll probably be thinking, well, I'm not going to do that with this audience because I've sensed that they're wanting to play more than feel the emotion bit. So I'm going to flip it real quick. And yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of mental agility while kind of like patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time to do that kind of thing. And it's something I'd never even considered. I've often asked how the space that someone's in, particularly during the Fringe, because they come in all shapes and sizes, how that affects a show. But I've never thought about how the number of audience, and of course it must affect it. If there are only, say, 3 people on a Monday at 6 compared to Saturday at 6, then it must be different. Do you almost feel you're talking directly more when it's less people?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there's a intimacy with a smaller audience. I performed a tiny bit of the show to 10 people, and you could feel that it was like people were really with me because they didn't have a choice, like they had to be. And that connection as performer to audience you build really quickly. Whilst I think with a bigger audience, you have to work a bit harder to make sure everyone feels kind of connected to you and feels like it's more personal.
Yeah, everyone kind of almost breaks their contact to have contact with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And is there anything else you're particularly looking forward to in Edinburgh? You're not going to have the time to do anything else.
I'm so excited to see everyone else's shows. I am so loving Gilded Balloon. You get like an artist pass to see the shows, and I just think that's amazing. It feels like theatre heaven to be just able to, I've got nothing else to do. So I'm just going to be watching as many shows as I can, really.
I think it was such a special time to be a performer in Edinburgh in August. I think must be incredibly special.
Yeah.
And just before we go, we should remind people where and when they can see you and also where they can learn more about it.
Yeah, so if you go on the Made in Scotland website, you'll be able to see Float's page and also F-Bomb Theatre Company's website as well. It'll be there, but it is 6 p.m. at the Gilded Balloon every night.
So you have no excuse not to go and see it.
No excuse, come on.
And it sounds like an amazing show, and I'm so pleased that you're able to tell us all about it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.